What's inside that bag is Vivo's ultimate move, a smartphone that nobody expected. If you like compact phones under 200 grams with an impossibly large battery that lasts up to 4 days, let me introduce you to the VIVO X200 FE. I think I remember that FE stands for Fan Edition, and that's because Vivo has listened to its customers to create a phone that meets their wishes. This X200 FE, which I'm presenting here exclusively for you, competes directly with the iPhone 16 or the upcoming iPhone 17, but costing almost half as much and being superior in absolutely everything, as you will see next. And besides putting it through tough tests in forests and beaches of unparalleled beauty, I'll also compare it with the VIVO X200 Ultra Vivo's top-of-the-line model. And you'll be surprised that this little one has a bigger battery and a camera system that is almost as good. But take a look at this unboxing, at this soft silicone case, which by the way is very slippery, as you just saw. In fact, I admit that in these shots I recorded for this video, I had a pretty hard time, considering that even though it's a case that feels luxurious and very well made, the outside is very slippery. Watch out for that. And now here you have the VIVO X200 FE in this kind of light blue color. I think there will be another color available. And also, the Vivo logo has a certain iridescence when direct sunlight hits it. But does it really feel like a minimalist smartphone built with glass and aluminum? It's been a long time on this channel since I tried a smartphone that weighs less than 200 grams. This one weighs only 186 grams and is less than 8 millimeters thick. Given its large battery, that's impressive. Now let's discuss the ports. There you have the USB Type-C port, one of the speakers, 2 microphones. By the way, it has a flat frame, all made of aluminum, and here is the SIM tray, where you can install 2 cards. Yes, with that bluish touch on the rubber band that confirms its resistance to dust and water, in the same color as the Zeiss logo. Both the lock button and the volume keys have a short travel, but are very precise. On the top, there are 2 microphones, and on the other side, there is absolutely nothing. In hand, it feels extremely ergonomic, especially, I insist, considering that it's very compact, very light, and despite that, it has an almost unbelievable battery, as I'll explain in detail next. Despite that, let's move on to what stands out the most, which is that screen with those very well-utilized bezels. And it's a 6.3 1-inch screen, OLED, Full HD Plus at 120 Hz with 10 bits and calibrated by Zeiss Master. It also has a maximum brightness of 5000 nits. And on the other hand, something I really like, it has the same PWM dimming of 2160 Hz as its bigger brother, which I already reviewed on this channel, the X200 Pro. Therefore, all the adaptive eye protection features make it possible to use this screen for longer periods without, for example, your eyes itching or getting a headache. The customization options for the screen are exactly the same as the higher-end model. You can change the resolution to save some battery, and you can also choose the refresh rate between 60 Hz, 120 Hz, or adaptive. But what I like the most, and what shows that Vivo really does care about the screen components, is that as you can see, it has IP69 water and dust protection. And even though it just came out of the river, this VIVO X200 FE correctly registers all touch inputs. That is, the controller doesn't go crazy even though the screen is completely wet. Let's say these are the little details that make the difference between a good smartphone and one that isn't so good. As for YouTube, you can see that it can handle 4K HDR at 60 Hz perfectly. And the screen, as you can see, by the way, has a pre-installed plastic film, and it looks perfect. Both the colors, the sharpness, and the brightness are great. The viewing angles are also good. The reflections are good. The bezels are extremely thin. And for consuming multimedia, it's an absolute delight. But let's move on to the comparison with this VIVO X200 Ultra, which I already tested on this channel. You have the review available, and look, because it's considerably bigger, thicker, with that huge camera module and the screens. As you can see, the screen of the X200 Ultra is rounded on all 4 edges, while the X200 FE's screen is completely flat. Also, the X200 Ultra feels noticeably heavier in the hand. Even so, to my surprise, the battery of the VIVO X200 FE is bigger than that of the X200 Ultra, and we're talking about a 6,500 mAh battery compared to the 6,000 mAh in the X200 Ultra. Also, this isn't a typical battery like those in the latest iPhones or Samsungs. It's a silicon battery. What does that mean? It lasts much longer, has more charge cycles, ages better, can be used in more extreme temperatures, hot or cold, without being affected as much, and also saves on size and weight. The only downside I see is that it doesn't have wireless charging. However, it does include fast charging up to 90 watts. And after all, with normal use, it has lasted me around 3 days. Of course, if you don't push it too hard, especially when it comes to the camera, you can easily get up to 4 days, and that's crazy. Now let's discuss the second thing I like most about this smartphone. The first thing is the battery, and the second is its camera system, which after using it for a few days, I think is outstanding. 50 megapixel selfie camera, 50 megapixel main camera, 50 megapixel telephoto, and 8 megapixel ultra wide angle. I'll leave the technical details about apertures, focal lengths, and more for you in the link below in the video description. By the way, the camera app is exactly the same as what we're used to from Vivo, keeping in mind that the interface is FunTouch. I recommend you watch the video I made about the X200 Pro, because there, I also share some tips to get the most out of its photography features. The only thing I miss is that super macro, and I think that's the most negative point. Or let's say it's where this smartphone falls short the most. Besides the ultra-wide angle, which was my least favorite of the 3 sensors, I feel the macro doesn't match the quality of other Vivo smartphones. But believe me, it's just a small flaw in a camera section that's outstanding. I really like all the modes it has, including the professional mode with an exposure time of up to 32 seconds. And in settings, this little trick, bitrate, set it to high and use it when you put the video in pro mode because it looks substantially sharper. By the way, it also includes the famous humanistic mode from Vivo, which is a kind of pro mode but more simplified and more customizable. And also, the photos taken with this mode, as you can see, are almost 7 megabytes compared to photos taken with the normal mode, with the regular photo mode, which are a little over 3 megabytes. There's much more information, so I suggest always using humanistic mode for photos when possible. Something I didn't like, and I already criticized the X200 Pro for this, is the artificial intelligence, especially the erase feature, and you can see that it really does a bad job. I hope future updates can improve this AI erase feature. Anyway, let's move on to the photos from this little smartphone from Vivo, the VIVO X200 FE. And as you can see, its camera system is incredible. Even though it has a much smaller zoom than, for example, my personal phone, which is the X200 Ultra, the zoom it can achieve, digital zoom X100 by the way, is surprisingly good. And I think this is mainly due to the software, to the processing that Vivo itself has, which I really believe is one of the best photo processing systems on the market today. It's not just the zoom, you're also seeing the other cameras, the colors, the dynamic range, the highlights. For example, I know it wasn't the best day to take photos, but at the same time I know this fog is the best opportunity to show off and prove itself as a good camera. And I think this little VIVO X200 FE has achieved that. Also, it's a smartphone that, just like the rest of Vivo's smartphones, is very enjoyable when it comes to taking photos. It's quote-unquote addictive, not just because of the options it has, which are almost endless, but because it makes you feel like a professional photographer. The portrait mode is also very good. Also, with that extra battery, you can spend much more time taking photos without worrying about running out of power too quickly. However, I have noticed that the phone gets a bit warmer than usual. Nothing to worry about, just to be clear, especially when you're taking photos and especially when you're recording 4K videos at 60 frames per second. But as I always say in all my videos, I don't ask you to believe me, I ask you to check it out for yourself. I'll share the best photos I've taken with this little guy from the Vivo family on my Telegram. There you can download them at the highest resolution, uncompressed, and I assure you that some of the photos can perfectly serve as wallpapers. I'll add my Telegram link in the video description below. As for the night, as you can see, for example, in this church, there was barely any light, but I don't know how this VIVO X200 FE manages to bring out so much light, making everything look spectacularly good, even when you zoom in, as you're seeing. So whether it's day, night, foggy, or rainy, it doesn't matter. This little beast always delivers. Its photography section is perfect. And now let's move on to the video section. Recording with the VIVO X200 FE. This would be its resolution at Full HD at 60 frames per second. Here's how its stabilization and microphones would perform. And this is its maximum resolution, that is 4K at 60 frames per second. Honestly, the screen performs very well, even though it's raining slightly. The touchscreen works perfectly. And this would be the ultra stabilization mode. You can choose it even in Full HD at 60 frames per second. Right now I'm jogging, and honestly, it seems that, at least on screen, it stabilizes very well. And it would also be able to record in slow motion in Full HD at up to 240 frames per second. And regarding the hardware and software, double tap to wake, double tap to lock, and it includes an optical fingerprint sensor. Would I have preferred an ultrasonic one? Even so, I have to admit that of all the optical ones I've tested on this channel so far, this is probably the best, because it even works more or less well in extreme humidity conditions. And regarding the interface, it's FanTouch, the same one used by the X200 Pro. I actually like the vibration motor more than the one in the X200 Pro, interestingly. And everything feels very smooth, not only because of those 120 Hz on its screen, but also because of the processor. It's a Dimensity 9300 Plus, which was the highest-end processor from last year. And this makes sense because it's still very powerful and also saves quite a bit on costs. You'll see the price later. But anyway, it also has 12 GB of RAM, LPDDR, 5X, and 512 GB of internal UFS storage, 500 GB, 312 GB of internal UFS 3.1 storage. It comes with stock Android 15, and the updates should be like the VIVO X200 Pro, meaning around 4 to 6 updates over the next 4 to 6 years. Using it in everyday apps like Instagram, everything works perfectly, and in more demanding apps, honestly, everything runs very smoothly. By the way, 5G, GPS, Bluetooth, everything has worked perfectly for me, and obviously this is global software. It's not Chinese like the one on my X200 Ultra, so you won't have any issues, and you won't find any apps in Chinese. To go deeper into the software, I recommend you watch the video I have about the X200 Pro, and when it comes to games, it's still an extremely powerful processor. You won't have any trouble running any game at the highest possible frame rates. Also, the audio system is good enough, and it's not only powerful, but it creates a pretty convincing three-dimensional effect, especially considering its size. And at this point, this VIVO X200 FE surprises me again, because I expected this to be its weakest point, but that's not the case at all. Here, I would have a speaker, and in the earpiece, I would have the second one. By the way, through the USB-C, it also sounds really good. And as always, a tip. If you go to Sound Quality and Effects, activate the Audio Super Resolution, which is disabled by default, and honestly, it really improves the sound. And you also have some customization. For those who are real connoisseurs of the best audio, you should know that this VIVO comes very well equipped in that regard. Let's now start the audio test for the smallest VIVO model. For those who prefer smaller phones without giving up power, a good camera system, and above all a great battery, I think VIVO has really nailed it with this VIVO X200 FE. Now let's discuss the price. How much does it cost? Well, it's going on sale today, and the company confirms that it costs around 849 euros. However, until July 7th, there will be an €80 discount coupon. That means it comes to a total of €769 for this smartphone with 512 gigabytes of storage. And they also give you the VWS 3E headphones and an 80W charger as a gift. I'll leave the purchase link below in the video description. There you can find the discount coupons. Honestly, I think it's the direct competitor to the upcoming iPhone 17 and also the iPhone 16. But as you can see, with the same 512 GB memory, the iPhone 16 costs €1,339, which is practically double. That being said, I don't think it's a bad price for a smartphone that just came out, especially considering the unique features of that silicon battery, which is honestly impressive. In addition to a superb display on par with the X200 Pro or even the Ultra, and considering it weighs less than 200 grams, it also includes a very powerful camera system. It's not perfect. Throughout this video, you've already seen some negative points. Even so today, for this price and for this size, you can't get anything like it. And with that said, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you like this VIVO X200 FE. Subscribe if you haven't yet, and leave a like so I can keep filming in these environments and making unique videos on YouTube. You know, if you have anything to say, leave it down below in the comments, and now I'll see you in the next video. Take care and see you soon.